guys, welcome back to my channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Nicole and I make bookish content. It has been a very long time since I've sat down and filmed a video, but we're changing that today because I had a really good reading month and I have a lot of books to talk to you guys about. I'm so proud of myself, guys. Very consistently, I've read 7 books a month until April, where I read 11 books. So feeling pretty good about myself. I read thrillers, YA fantasy, contemporary, romance, and so if you guys want to hear about what I read and my thoughts, then just keep on watching. So the first 3 books that I read in the month of April were actually for a vlog that I posted a couple weeks ago, and that's where I did a book swap with my really good friend Christine from the Roomies Digest. Everyone go check out her channel if you haven't. She has really good content. We did a book swap essentially where she sent me books that she was kind of like meh about, and I did the same, and then we did a swap reading vlog where we talked about our honest thoughts and opinions, and plot twist, I ended up really liking some of the books that she sent me. So the books that I ended up reading were The 12 Dates of Christmas by Jenny Bayliss, The Scent Keeper by Erica Bauermeister, and The Paper Magician by Charlie N. Holmberg. I'm not really going to go into any of these books because I did film a whole vlog on it, so if you guys are interested in hearing or seeing my thoughts on that, then definitely go ahead and click the link in my down description box to see the video of my vlog and my thoughts. The next book that I read in the month of April was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is about a woman named Nora Seed, and she's just kind of having a rough time in her life. Like, she's hit a rough patch, she's got bad family relationships, and she's not really on good terms with her best friend, and so she's just having a rough time, and she ends up having this really bad day where everything just seems to go super wrong, and she decides to take her own life. Next thing you know, she wakes up in this library where her school librarian is there, offers her the option of going through all the books of possible outcomes in her life if she made different choices. And basically this is the middle place between life or death, and this is just a very interesting take on alternate realities and about how even one small decision can really set off a chain of events that could end up with a totally different outcome than the life that you're currently living. I give this book a 3.5 star. I give that rating because I had heard so many great things about this book, and I know that a lot of people really liked it, and there wasn't really anything wrong with the book. I liked the protagonist enough. I did like all the different stories where you kind of get to see all these different life realities. I really enjoyed that. However, something about the writing just kind of kept me detached from the storyline, and I found myself skimming at times. It just wasn't very engaging for me, and I didn't really know why that was, but I just felt very detached from the story the entire time. Now that I've finished reading it and have allowed a month to just digest it, there's not really anything super special about it. So unfortunately, even though I know that like everyone has liked it, it just didn't reach me the way that I was hoping that it would, but it wasn't a bad book by any means. Just didn't connect with me as I wanted it to. The next book that I read in the month of April was 6 of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, and okay, ever since I started watching BookTube, I had heard so much about 6 of Crows, and it's been on my TBR for a long time, so I was really happy to be able to finally read it. This basically follows a group of misfits where they decide to pull off this elaborate heist, and this is definitely not the best, most thought out summary. If you like the Grishaverse and you like Shadow and Bone, the show or the book series, I would highly recommend reading this book because it was so good. It was a 5-star read for me. It kept me super engaged. I got really invested with all the characters. Yeah, I really liked the character building for this. I do feel like there was definitely a lot of action, but I really felt like compared to the Shadow and Bone trilogy, I got to know a lot of the characters on a deeper level, and I think a big part of that is because there was multiple POVs to the storytelling. Overall, I'm really excited to continue and read the second book, as well as start the King of Scars duology, but this was definitely worth the hype. I have no complaints about it, and you should definitely go read this if you like like YA fantasy. The next book that I read in the month of April was The Beautiful by Renee Audier, and I actually buddy read this with Brayden Eugene, who is an author slash booktuber, and so this is a kind of paranormal romance about this girl named Celine, and she's fleeing from Paris to escape an act she committed that she's trying to run away from, and so she finds refuge in America in New Orleans. During this time, there seems to be a serial killer on the loose where people are just kind of dying, mostly women, and there could be something paranormal involved with that. Celine ends up taking refuge in a convent, and she ends up getting somehow entwined with the city's glitzy underworld known as La Cour des Lions. There could be a romance. I gave this book a 3.5 star because it was really interesting and there was a lot going on, a lot of intrigue and drama and romance, kind of, in the pining sort of way, but I again just felt very disconnected with the characters, and I wouldn't say that I really loved any of the characters or that I really shipped the romantic interest. I was just very neutral about it. Honestly, I know this sounds kind of mean, but I don't even really remember a lot of what went on in this book just because it really didn't reach me. So as you can see, I started sticky noting, but then I kind of lost interest. But I don't think as of now I'm planning on continuing the story. I'm happy that I read it. It was an interesting story for sure, but again, nothing that I would recommend to a friend or family, and it's something that I don't think I'm ever gonna read again, but I don't have any complaints about it. Okay, and so the next 4 books that I actually read were part of the Thrills and Chills readathon that I hosted on BookTube. It was my first readathon, guys. I was so excited with 3 of my amazing BookTube friends. I completed my bingo board. I'm really proud of myself. I wasn't sure how many books I'd be able to read, so without further ado, let's talk about the 4 thrillers that I read this past month. Okay, so the first book that I read as part of the Thrills and Chills readathon was The Sanatorium by Sarah Peirce, and this is about a woman named Ellen Warner who's a detective and who has decided to take some time off of work because she had a traumatic episode. Her and her brother are also estranged, so when he invites her and her boyfriend to celebrate his engagement at an elusive 5-star Swiss Alps resort, she's excited but also kind of nervous to patch things up and see him and confront him. When they get there, the next day, Ellen's brother's fiance goes missing, and an avalanche hits. Police can't get anywhere near there, and it could be that there's a serial killer on the loose. So Ellen might have to put on her detective hat and find out if there is someone who is going around killing and kidnapping people. Okay, so I gave this book a 4.5 star. I really liked it. It was very, very atmospheric. I felt very into the world. It was very creepy. I really, really liked every second of it. It was very twisty, kept me on my toes the whole time. The only complaint I have, and this is why I'm giving it a 4.5 star and not a 5-star read, is because I wasn't really happy with the ending. Like, unless there's gonna be a sequel or something, I don't know. I felt like at the very end, things were just kind of wrapped up super fast, and so I didn't have time to, you know, get explanations for all of the things that I had on my mind, and there was kind of an open end, and so I don't know how I feel about that, but because of that, I'm giving it a 4.5 star. It was still a really, really great book, and I would definitely recommend reading it if you guys like thriller, or if you liked the book 1 by 1 by Ruth Ware. I think that you guys would like this. It's literally kind of the same premise, but it's super different, so don't even worry about that. I was actually worried that it was going to be too similar, and it definitely wasn't. Definitely go check this out if you guys like thrillers or atmospheric, or you just want a cool escape, I guess, from the summer heat, because it's hot in Arizona. So yeah. The next book that I read was Bad Girls with Perfect Faces by Lynn Weingarten, and this is a very interesting multiple POV kind of story about this girl named Sasha who's in high school and she's in love with her best friend Xavier. So when he gets back with his cheating ex, she knows that she has to do something about it, so she decides to invent a fake guy persona online to make his cheating ex-girlfriend fall in love with him instead, but things go super, super wrong. This kind of gives me Pretty Little Liars meets Riverdale vibes. So if you guys like that kind of teen drama, but it's not super scary or gory, then definitely go for it. This is definitely more of like a angsty, fun read, but I wouldn't say I would recommend reading it if you guys want like actual chills. It was definitely a lot less scary than I thought it was going to be. It's also YA. So I gave this book a 4.5 star because I really enjoyed it. I don't think I would say that I loved it forever and ever, but I did really like it. I would possibly reread it, and I definitely would recommend this to a friend. The next book that I read was People Like Her by Ellery Lloyd, and this is about a Insta-famous mom who is posting a lot about her imperfect life and giving parenting tips to millions of fans online. However, there might be someone who isn't so much of a fan of her and who wants her to fail. I don't really want to say anything else besides the fact that this revolves around social media, kind of gives me You vibes. So if you guys like that, I would definitely recommend reading this because it was definitely interesting. I will say though, it wasn't as thrilling as I was expecting. I gave this a 4 star. I would say the storyline really didn't have me hooked. I really did not like the protagonist, and there is multiple POV, which is pretty nice, but I just felt not on edge the entire book, even though this is supposed to be a psychological thriller. So in my opinion, I think that the book was interesting enough to read through once. It's not something I would read through again, but the reason why I'm giving it a 4 star and not something lower than that is because it really did make me think about what I want to do with social media and about how when you portray stuff on social media, how easy it is for people to find out information about you, and just made me like very aware of all the dangers of social media and the dangers that exposing so much of your public life can really have on your personal life. It was very eye-opening in that sense. Don't go into it expecting it to be some violent, aggressive, intense thriller because it definitely wasn't that. It was very, very tame. Finally, the last book that I read for the Thrills and Chills readathon was The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. Now this is a very interesting book because it was, I think, inspired from Jane Eyre, the classic, which I've never read, but now I'm definitely intrigued and want to check it out. So this book is about Jane, who moves into this very pristine neighborhood, and she's working as a dog walker because she's actually very, very broke, and she's again trying to escape a past with a traumatic incident. She meets this very, very charming and handsome man who recently had a wife that passed away. They're both keeping secrets possibly, and those secrets might soon rise to the surface. I think this is a very, very interesting read. I gave it a 4.5 star because I actually really, really liked it, and I liked all the drama and suspense. It was definitely a page turner, like I couldn't really put it down. It's also multi-POV, which I think is really, really interesting and fun because there could be an unreliable narrator. I kind of like the romance. It was very intriguing. So if you guys like behind closed doors, give this one a read because it's very satisfying in that same way. Yeah, overall I enjoyed that. So as you guys can see, I actually had really good luck with the thrillers that I read. Although I will say they weren't really as scary as I thought they were gonna be, they were still very much enjoyable, and you know, I will be sharing these with some of my friends because I think that they were very interesting and I did get something out of all of them. The last 2 books that I read were The Cruel Prince as well as the novella that comes, I think, in between the first and second books by Holly Black. I'm hosting the Cruel Prince read-along from April through June, where each month we read a book from the trilogy and have a live show and basically discuss it with you guys. If you guys are curious to hear more in-depth thoughts and dissections and analysis, if you guys have read this book already, then I'll leave the link in my description down below so you guys can see Christine and I's live show where we talk all things Cruel Prince and about our personal thoughts and opinions and predictions and all of that kind of jazz. This was a solid 5-star book for me. This is about a girl named Jude who's a very fierce, independent girl who was whisked away to fairyland when she was 7 years old because her parents were murdered. She is not really accepted by the fairy people because they despise humans. However, Jude has ambitions. She wants to win a place at the high court, which is basically like the fairy palace. The youngest prince, Carden, who's her age, hates her and he's the most evilest of all. YA fantasy. Enemies to lovers, question mark? I loved this book. I loved the intrigue. Honestly, you know, there wasn't as much romance as I was expecting from this book. So I had heard so much about, you know, Prince Carden, like, so great, whatever. So I was reading this, you know, expecting a little bit more romance, and there really wasn't. But it was totally okay because the storyline, the writing was just so captivating and engaging that I loved the character development, and I loved the political intrigue. I didn't even want to get into it, but it was so interesting and so unexpected, and every time I thought I knew where the story was going, it would just flip into another direction, and I love books that keep me on my toes. So definitely would recommend reading this if you guys liked the Spiderwick Chronicles growing up. I feel like this is very much a YA fantasy book that you don't want to miss. Those are all the books that I read in the month of April. It's like the first week of May and I have not gotten any books done. So I'm predicting that next month is going to revert back to my 7 books a month. We're just gonna celebrate my success as of now. And yeah, thank you guys so much for staying with me if you guys have made it through this far. I will be writing down all the books that I read in my description box, as well leaving links to the videos that I mentioned or people that I mentioned. If you guys like my content or like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!